What I'm saying is playing on a smaller team, a smaller league, where you're playing European competition, where there's diversity in the way that teams play, I think could benefit players long-term over playing in the championship where you're just battling in the middle or you go up just to come back down. That's what I was making a point of.
No, I mean, definitely. Every player has their viewpoint. Every player feels comfortable in different situations. Obviously, for me, I feel like if you want to arrive at the highest level that you can, putting yourself in a place where you can experience more and play against high-level competition and against different, teams in different countries by being in Conference League, Europa League, or Champions League, I think obviously that's more beneficial, especially long-term. Although I will say Leeds, for instance, that they're in the championship, I think it's also still a big club. They've proven it in the past. And, it's one of those leagues championship that it's still up there. And if it wasn't second league in England, it would probably be a first league somewhere else, because it's a lot of competition in that league and definitely teaches players the more gritty side of things. So as far as player development, it could be good to bring out that side of someone. But as far as long-term, definitely, I think to be playing against other competitions and higher levels. Yeah.
Whoa, interesting words there from Weston McKennie in his answer to our very own Chuck Davies. Welcome in to Call It What You Want, your favorite Average to Good podcast. I'm Jimmy Conrad. I'm on the road today. I'm in Stamford, Connecticut, not too far from my very own Charlie Davies. Chuck, great to see you. No Tony Meola today. Big Tones, I think, has had enough of us for at least one show. Chuck, how are you doing, dude? I can't wait to see you and give you a proper hug in person here.
I know. Fantastic. It's middle of the fall. This is when I come to life. We got all these matches in Europe. National team Nations League coming up in November. A lot to look forward to. Halloween Thursday, then beeline into Thanksgiving, Christmas. I'm hyped. Let's go.
I'm hyped for you as well. And what's interesting is I think our player pool is also hyped. Christian Pulisic doesn't get to play this weekend due to weather conditions, but he's got a big game against Napoli midweek. But everybody else decided to pop off and have big games. And so we have a lot to discuss as it pertains to Americans abroad and their performances, of course, including MLS playoffs. Lots to get into, but let's start with Weston McKennie. And yes, what did you say? I mean, I didn't catch that morning footy. What did you say afterwards? Because he seemed like he was backing you in what you were trying to get across there.
Yeah, my guy's backing me. He knows the deal.
My guy.
We already got people in here trying to light a fire under me. Dalton Harris in the chat saying he should have said my biggest hater over the summer. Charlie Davies motivated me to break into the Juve lineup. You got to remember, Weston. I look at Weston as like a little brother, and I know how good he can be, but sometimes we lose a little focus and. For the expectations placed on Weston McKennie's shoulders, because we've seen him when he's at his best, he is so dominant. I mean, we could see him right now in the Champions League. We could see him with Juve now. We saw him, in 2021 with Cristiano Ronaldo in Juve and scoring some big goals in the Champions League. But for him to be fulfilling his potential, he's got to keep pushing. And sometimes I felt like, he gets to that high peak, and he's like, I'm good here. And it's like, no, I know you can keep going. You can give me more. So when we've seen him play with the U.S. Men's National Team, if it's not at a high level where he's standing out, we're all of us former players, we're going to say, no, Weston, we know you can give more. Give us more. And so I couldn't be more proud of him given his growth from World Cup qualifying to now. And we've seen Weston McKennie, right, when you're playing with Cristiano Ronaldo, when you're playing first with Schalke in the Bundesliga and then making that massive jump to Juve. He took a loan to Leeds. It didn't work out in the way that we all hoped, but he never gave up. And it's so easy to say, you know what? I'm going to go get the bag. MLS, here I come. I'll take that $10 million a year, $8 million a year for 5 years guaranteed, or I'll go to Saudi Arabia and take the bag. He wants to continue to prove himself. He put himself in a position where odds are you're not going to play. The coach came out and said, you're surplus to our requirements. And guess what? My man's arguably the most important player for Juve right now.
2
Let's
years
go.
in a row, Chuck, with 2 different coaches, and he's
Yeah.
won over both of them, which really speaks to what you're saying about Weston. But I love you playing the tough love card. He's my little brother. I'm just giving him some tough
No,
love.
honestly,
I've got plenty of time for it.
that's how I look at Weston and a lot of the guys, to be honest. And Jimmy, as a former U.S. men's national team player, you quickly understand what it means to get to that level, and then you quickly develop these bonds when you're playing with each other and you're in the trenches and you're having a battle. And when we were playing, you're playing against some of the best opponents in the world, the Brazils of the world, Spain, Argentina's. You have to defend as a collective, and that's when you're bleeding, you're sweating, you're looking at the guy next to you, you're like, we got to do this together, or otherwise we're not going to make it. We're going to be buried 5-0. And so now, after you've gone and done that, you look back and you're like, we want these guys to succeed.
Right.
They're part of it now, right? And so that's kind of what goes into it. But Weston was sensational. The first assist to Dusan Vlahovic, I'm not making that pass. I can tell you that right now. I'm going for goal. That ball came up perfect. Clipped in ball into his path, and he saw the vision. Also executed. It had to be the perfect weight of the touch and the pass to Dusan to give him a nice little alley-oop. So from that point, but also creating the other goal, the 4th goal, I believe it was, he was all over the pitch, winning his challenges and obviously creating two goals with 2 assists. So fantastic performance from Weston. Look at the pass percentage as well. That I love what I'm seeing from Weston over the past 2 years, and I just want that to translate to the U.S. men's national team, and I want him to keep pushing.
Yeah, to give everybody some context, we're referencing the Derby d'Italia between Inter Milan and Juventus. That game finished 4-4. One of the craziest games we'll probably see this whole European season, especially between 2 opponents that usually battle out to like a 0-0 or 1-1 draw. But 4-4 is absolutely next level. Weston McKennie did have an assist to Dusan Vlahovic to start the party. Actually, Inter had scored first, I think, on a penalty, and then that made it 1-1. Then Timo Weah, who played out on the left but cut inside a lot. There was clearly some masterminding by Thiago Motta, the manager for Juve, to get him to come inside, because when he ends up scoring his goal, Timo Weah scores the second goal to make it 2-1 at that point. He finds himself like almost crisscrossing with someone that went out wide in this particular play, and it was really cool to see that he's getting that type of responsibility. So there's clearly some tactical maneuvering to make sure that he gets himself in good areas to score goals, and really proud of how he performed as well. I know, though, Chuck, there was a play later in the game as Inter came storming back. I think it made it 3-2 right before halftime, where he gave the ball away. Tim Weah gave the ball away in midfield. And what I loved, actually, was that his reaction. He wanted to, he knew he gave the ball away in a bad spot. He worked his ass off to get back into the play and to make something happen. And it was his deflected pass that ended up leading into the path of, I think, Marcus Thuram or Denzel Dumfries. And that ends up leading to a penalty on Kalulu. But I was a little it was unfortunate that how it was all unfolded, but I really appreciated his reaction. When we evaluate players, how you react to a mistake is almost as important as anything else that you're doing out there. So, and if you want to rely on somebody, you're talking about relying on teammates, right? In tough moments. If somebody makes a mistake, if their reaction is, I'm going to go try to rectify that mistake as soon as possible, those are the types of players you want to play around and be around on a consistent basis. So I was really proud of Tim Weah, and his reaction was just a little bit unlucky that it fell into that area and then ended up scoring on that penalty to make it 3-2. But what a game, 4-4, and lots to be proud of for these particular guys. And so I'm kind of curious as to how Mauricio Pochettino, let's tie it back into the U.S. men's national team, how he's going to use both of these players, because I like that Weston was in advanced positions, right? We didn't have he just is so good at finding himself and drifting into the box and help partnering almost as a second striker to Dusan Vlahovic. Not all the time, but he really has done a really nice job of picking his spots.
Well, Jimmy, I think he's so underrated in his distribution. I think he is a phenomenal passer, and probably doesn't get the credit he deserves when it comes to being someone who can distribute well out of midfield. But we all know his strengths. He's up there with some of the best in the world when it comes to winning aerial duels and set pieces and arriving late into the box. Like he's up there with some of the best midfielders in the world. I think in possession sometimes and playing quicker is where he can drastically improve. long shots on target from like distance. That's an area where he can improve. But when you're talking about guys who I think we know needs to be on the field, guys that are going to battle, that you want on the field when it comes to a big battle, Weston McKennie is sketched into the team. He's etched in as a starter all day, every day. He's just one of those guys that you just need him to be on, right, and motivated. Sometimes that could be due to the coach, could be due to the environment, the atmosphere, whatever it is. But as long as the right coach gets him motivated, and there seems to be some similarities between Allegri and Thiago Motta in the sense that they both said, "No, we don't want you here," or not that we don't want you here. You're not going to play here, so you can leave. And that lit a fire under him. So it almost, to me, seems like these are ways to get him to motivate him, to not let him feel like he's safe, right? And then you go to the USMNT national team camp, and it's, I have my spot. I'm good.
Right.
And guys weren't being pushed. And the first thing we asked Weston McKennie in the interview on Morning Footy was, what's it like with Pochettino? And he was like, damn, we're going to be running. It's work. And that gives you kind of insight, is guys know the demand's there to run, to work, and that doesn't allow you to get comfortable.
No, I think what's interesting, just a slight difference between Allegri and Thiago Motta, is that Allegri already knew what Weston was about, right? He had already coached him and made the decision, I don't know if we really want you anymore. So to kind of re-win him over, I thought was impressive. Thiago Motta comes in, he's got his own ideas, wants to bring in his own players, doesn't really know Weston probably as intimately as Allegri did at that point. And so they're impressive in different ways. To win over somebody that kind of quit on you, and then to win over somebody who just didn't really know who you're about. And just, I think,
and you had to prove,
really
either way, you got to prove yourself, right?
Yeah. And now he's got to do it again with Pochettino. And not the same way, right? I think there's clear value, and the respect is much different from Pochettino. But it's going to be interesting to see how he's employed under Pochettino. We're going to have a big conversation about our midfield here in our next block. But I kind of want to get into some more notable performances. So before we continue on the Weston McKennie train and Tim Weah, let's talk about Cole Campbell. The teenager subbed on for Dortmund in his debut for the Black and Yellow in a 2-1 defeat. I don't know how the Black and Yellow just losing games, but they lost to Augsburg. That means that Cole Campbell has got 10 minutes this season for Borussia Dortmund. Gio Reyna has 9. Not a good look for Mr. Gio Reyna. Let me hold on. You can circle back to
that. Nuri Sahin, the coach, has just been absolutely abysmal, just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, what'd you expect from a kind of a first-time coach at Dortmund? And you're trying to compete for championships and champions. Not it yet. I mean, not ready.
Let's think about it though. 45 minutes on Wednesday, 45 minutes into playing against Real Madrid, they're up 2-0 in Madrid. And he's probably thinking, damn, this shit's easy, you know? And then that game flips. Then they hit the weekend and they lose to Augsburg. And you're like, wow, life comes at you pretty fast. So, yeah, that's pretty wild. So Cole Campbell subbed on for that. Very exciting news, as we discussed about him in a recent podcast. They're comparing him to Leroy Sané for Bayern Munich, a similar player profile. I think that's some pressure, but just to give everybody an idea of what he looks like and how he likes to play. Ricardo Pepi got a brace, scored 2 very good goals in PSV's 6-0 win versus Zwolle. And now he is the top scorer for PSV this season. So I'm going to get your thoughts on that, Chuck, as our resident number 9. But before we do, Malik Tillman also scored in this game, his 5th of the season. Haji Wright scored Coventry's winning goal versus Luton. They were down 2-0. They stormed back to make it 3-2. He scored at the very end, had to trickle over the line, but put himself in a good spot to make it happen. I think also a vital play in that game was that he made a really good move down the line, which got a defender for Luton a second yellow, got him thrown out of the game, and then that allowed Coventry to have that with that man advantage to apply even more pressure. So even though that doesn't hit the scoreboard or the stats in the same way, I thought he had excellent movement there off the ball to create an opportunity where he got a second yellow for a player, which ultimately I think allowed him to score that winning goal in the first place. But nice to see Haji scoring back-to-back goals now in back-to-back games. So his confidence getting going is a nice thing as well. So you got resident number 9, Charlie Davies. Let's start with Ricardo Pepi. Do you think he's going to get over Luke de Jong? think that he is, but he's making a strong case that he deserves even more minutes than he's been getting.
Yeah, I don't think he will play over Luke de Jong because Peter Bosch has already talked about he's behind Luke de Jong. Luke de Jong's a phenomenon. He's the captain and yada yada yada, going on and on. But all Ricardo Pepi can do is control what Ricardo Pepi can control, and that is producing when you get those minutes. And Luke de Jong's not getting any younger, so entering his mid-30s, you're going to start to see a decline naturally. And someone who's hungry, who's 21 years old, I might add, is only going to pique the interest in the mind of Peter Bosch as the coach to say, you know what, this Ricardo Pepi, last 2 starts, he's got 4 goals. He's got a brace in each game. I might have something here. And so I think naturally when he first came into the scene and to the team, he had those good performances, but then the next week he'd find himself on the bench. And you start questioning yourself, you start questioning the coach. And it's easy to kind of maybe make a comment here or there that maybe it's better left in your mind or in the locker room. But I think he's doing the right thing. He's got Ernie Stewart there as a sporting director as well. As just put your head down and keep working. And so I think from that standpoint, he's making a strong case for himself that if Luke de Jong doesn't keep producing, and it's tough to keep that up as a striker. We all know you go in and out of form, that he's going to see more minutes. And I think it's just it's a guarantee he'll see more minutes. But in terms of starting and absolutely displacing Luke de Jong, it's going to be tough for this year. But next season, I could see them moving on from Luke de Jong.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is Ricardo Pepi was named man of the match in this game, just to throw that out there. Is there, and I'm looking at their team right now, Peter Bosch, the manager, is there a universe where you could start both him and Luke de Jong at the same time, Ricardo Pepi and Luke de Jong at the same time? But they just signed Ivan Perisic, right, who's an excellent player, of course. You got Noah Lang, who's got a goal and assist on the other side of Ricardo Pepi.
Those are guys, those are wide players for the most part.
Sure. But right, but one of them might have to be, I bring them up because if you consider bringing up a Pepi and Luke de Jong playing at the same time, somebody has to be sacrificed. So where are you going to make that happen? I assume it's Lang or Perisic or Bakayoko. He came on as a sub, even though he usually starts.
You're not benching him.
No, you're not benching him at all. But then you have Sabari, who I thought was excellent in this game. Goose Till, you got Malik Tillman. You got all these guys, and you're like, okay. I mean, it's a great problem to have if you're Peter Bosch. We got 8 to 10 guys that play our front, let's say 6 positions. Maybe even more than that, 10 to 12. And they're all playing pretty well right now. Who do I start and what's the best formation? We've never seen him play with 2 strikers, but if you're trying to fit in a couple people, I wonder if he'd even consider it. Probably not at this point, but a conversation worth having, I suppose. Let's talk then a little bit about Haji Wright. How impressed were you with him? Because I thought he was really busy, found himself in some good spots. And, when you're down 2-0, it's not an easy spot to get out of. And they found their way to make it happen with Coventry.
No, I mean, for Haji Wright, I think he's a player who lost his form a little bit and his place maybe in the pecking order with the U.S. men's national team because his last few appearances weren't as commanding as I would have thought and hoped given his form with Coventry City, and it kind of dropped a little. There's a dip, normal dip, but it seems like now he's back. He's getting the minutes that he rightfully deserves and making an impact. He gets the game winner. So when Haji Wright is feeling it, when he's moving, when he's active, if there's a lot of just standing around or ball watching or being late, being really reactive instead of proactive, that's when maybe he's not all there. But no, this is great. You want to have these performances heading into a window that actually matters. No, they all matter, but one that is actually a competition in the Nations League to get you into the Nations League semifinals and finals in March.
All right, Chuck. So putting you on the spot here, who's your starter just right now? Obviously, we have a little bit more time until not only is the roster announced, but before we have to name a starting 11 for that first game in
spot?
Kingston. Number 9, who's starting for you? Has Ricardo Pepi done enough to be like the automatic starter? Josh Sargent, he was part of a 3-3 draw with Middlesbrough against Aiden Morris, who was on the show last week.
He's had a big dip in form, Josh Sargent. And we go back to this last window, right, of not maximizing this opportunity with 2 matches. He if anything, he hurt, right? He hurt himself in his standing under Mauricio Pochettino's first camp. So Ricardo Pepi would be my starting striker.
I mean, he did score in that first game
Yes.
against Panama, right? Came off the bench
No,
and
but
then they sent him home.
it's not even that. It's he's playing with PSV at the moment, and he's obviously scoring. He's getting more time. He's getting more respect. But his experience with the U.S. Men's national team, we know in CONCACAF, you can count on Ricardo Pepi in CONCACAF. That I don't think that was ever an issue. And so I think he's only gotten better. He's got more experience. He's had success in Europe last season with PSV. So I think all of that has helped him for this moment of playing with that chip on his shoulder. And he's ready to, you could tell he's ready for this moment. And I'm more confident with him finishing than I am with right now. Haji, Josh Sargent, all these guys. It almost like he fits that system. Because Balogun's out. So Balogun's hurt. So that's why he would not be a starter. So in this system, I think Ricardo Pepi's movement on and off the ball helps him and helps the team. I think it just suits the team right now, given that there's no number 10.
Chuck, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with everybody that's saying the same thing in the chats. For everybody listening at home,
no disagreements.
No disagreement. No, there's not much to disagree with. I think that Pepi's the right choice. I think he's hungry. You can clearly see he's got a chip on his shoulder, a lot to prove for a lot of different reasons. And I'm excited to see him get the run out. So, and he's been playing well. Honestly, the 2 goals he had this weekend were unbelievable. Just really well taken. 2 different kinds of goals. One was a volley off of a cross first time, and the other one found himself in a good spot, made a good run to create the space, got it out of his feet and curled it to the back post. I mean, those are strikers' goals, you know, and if you're feeling, or if you've seen a player in your player pool that's playing with that type of confidence and in a position where we need somebody playing with confidence, it's hard to argue otherwise than Ricardo Pepi. All right, we're going to take our first break and call it what you want. So when we come back, we're going to have a big conversation about the midfield. What's going on with the U.S. men's national team and the midfield? Who should start against Jamaica? We're going to break it all down for you, so don't go anywhere.
If you love football, this is the best time of the year.
This is as big as it gets.
The stuff of absolute dreams.
All right, welcome back into Call It What You Want, your favorite average to good podcast. I'm Conrad Dino alongside Chuck Wagon, and we are getting after it, or Chuck E. Cheese. That's what Big Tones likes to call Chuck at times. So I guess the big topic is, and I teased it right before the break, the U.S. men's national team midfield. Is it back to full strength? Because we're starting to see everybody get healthy again, including one Tyler Adams, who got 9 minutes off the bench for Bournemouth as they came back to tie Aston Villa away from home on a set piece of Evan Nielsen with a nice glancing header there in that game. Still super impressed with Aston Villa. Unai Emery is a top manager. But let's take a look at the midfielders abroad. Weston McKennie, as we mentioned, 2 assists in the 4-4 draw against Inter. Tyler Adams returns after 168 days in the 1-1 draw. Tanner Tessman gets the start. I want to talk about him for sure. Lyon drew 2-2 with Auxerre. Johnny Cardoso plays the full 90 in a 1-0 win versus Atleti. That was a big win for Betis. And I thought Johnny was excellent in that particular game. He put in a couple balls. One was for a breakaway, looking forward, trying to split the lines. Atleti, as an Atleti supporter, I got some questions to some of their defending, but that's a conversation for another time, probably another even podcast. Leonard Maloney plays the full 90 in Heidenheim's 0-0 draw versus Hoffenheim. So let's start with Tyler Adams, because he was our captain in the World Cup in 2022. That deserves our respect. He's back into the team. Would you risk him? Would you bring him in? Let's just start there. Before we talk about the midfield and who we think is going to play, let's talk Tyler Adams, Chuck. Would you risk him for these 2 games against Jamaica in the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals?
Well, one, yes, you're bringing him in. That's number one. Tyler Adams is a necessity for this team to have success at this moment. He brings that one, the toughness and the grit and the holding guys accountable, and he covers so much ground. You just can't replace him, really. 2, I think he's past the injury. At least that's my mindset. He's past it. He's done the necessary rehab and research on his body. He's ready to take the next step forward and put all the injury woes behind him. So you got to bring him in. That doesn't mean you have to play in both games, but I think it's really important that he's there and he's part of the team. And Pochettino gets a look at him, and again, we're back to, okay, Weston is a must, right? He's a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, when he's healthy, is a starter. You have to etch him in. Who's that next guy? What does that look like? And then
that's
if
a big question.
You're taking into account Jamaica and how they play. You could probably bet your life savings that they're gonna be a sit back and counter team and try and use their pace, and their speed and the experience of Mikel Antonio up top. I mean, you can't just basically.
I'm a huge Bobby Reed Cordova fan as well. Bobby Reed Cordova's he's a very good player, and so he's very good at playing between the lines. So. Yeah, I mean, they have a couple guys that can hurt you. You got Leon Bailey if he's coming in now. Obviously, he had some issues with the previous coach. I mean, they got some guys, dude. They got some guys.
Yeah, they do. So you need all your best players. And I think the biggest conundrum for Pochettino is figuring out what he's going to do with that midfield. If that's the deepest position for the U.S. men's national team, and a majority of your guys are playing now. So, Yunus Musa is not really playing with this club, but you have a Tyler Adams and McKennie. Tyler's just getting back. Weston's a must. So he's a lock him in, starter 100%.
Okay.
So now what does that look like? You have Johnny Cardoso. Yeah, he's starting to play well with Real Betis, but he was poor with the U.S. men's national team. Do you hold that against him, or you say, oh, that's an anomaly? We move forward.
Well, he didn't get caught. He wasn't in the Pochettino first camp.
The one before that.
Something about bringing in Cardoso as well. Like, let's see what he looks like.
Tessman now
shambles play regularly.
Mikey Veras.
Well, yeah.
Camp Shambles. Yeah.
Camp Shambles, which, you got to throw a little asterisk into that camp,
of course.
Different voice, trying different things against an opponent that was very eager to beat us. That didn't help the cause. And then the New Zealand game, some guys stood out, but only Marlon Fossey in particular. But let's get back to this midfield conversation, because I think for the same reason you want to bring in Tyler Adams, let's bring in Cardoso, right? If you want to see what he's about, he's playing regularly now for Manuel Pellegrini at Betis. Let's see how he fits into the group. Clearly, Pochettino's a fan of Aiden Morris and Busio. So that's four midfielders. That's four. Weston would be five. And then I guess it depends on how you designate. I mean, you're going to bring Tessman back in. He's starting to play regularly now for Lyon and got started this past weekend. I actually thought, with regard to Tessman, they had him, Matic, and Veretout all start at the same time. And some of their player profile, they're not all exact, but they're not too far away from each other either. I thought that was an interesting balance of midfielders. And the coach there, he rotated the squad because I think they thought they were going to roll Auxerre, and they didn't roll Auxerre. It was a much more of a battle than I think they anticipated. They made a lot of changes, and Lacazette, for instance, their captain, didn't start. But Wilfried Zaha didn't start either. But so it's interesting. I like that they tinkered with it and gave Tessman a chance. He played the whole 90, and I thought he was solid. He was good. He played a little bit more advanced, though, because Matic was the one holding in the 6, and he was playing more of an 8. So it's interesting to see that, okay, he's got that. We knew he had in his skill set, but it's nice to see that his club coach is recognizing that as well. And I wonder what Pochettino takes with that information. So if you bring Tessman back in, you're at 6. Well, then if you classify Brendan Aronson as a midfielder, and you're putting him in one of those spots, that's 7. Tim Weah, where are you going to put him? That could be 8, potentially. Musa, that could be another one. That's a lot of guys. This is a good.
Did you already put Aiden Morris and Busio in those two, right?
Yeah, Morris and Busio are part of that. Yeah. So
that's a lot. Oh, did you put Luca Del Torre in there?
I didn't. That would be 10.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, deep.
Yeah, it's deep. All of a sudden, we go from not having a lot of options to having a lot of options, and now, to your point, it becomes a decision for Pochettino and his staff to decide not only who's going to be. Let's leave the opponent aside for a second. Who is just going to have or be able to establish a rhythm for us when we have the ball and help us in transition, and then conversely, when we don't have the ball, who is going to execute the style of pressure that I want to apply on the ball, and where we trap and how do we communicate and how do we put people in good spots? Like, that's what these guys are competing for at this point, is can they fit into what Pochettino wants to see on both sides of the ball? And I think everybody's going to get a chance. Now it's just a matter of them taking that opportunity. But some good, tough decisions overall, Chuck.
Couldn't agree more. And I think in every scenario possible, formation, tactics, that Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie fit into all of them. So whether you're thinking about it a mid block or playing in a way that's not prone to counterattacks from Jamaica, then you may sit a little bit deeper, or you have your back line drop. You don't play as high, whatever that may be. Tyler Adams and Wes McKennie fit in that. You also want to keep the ball and pin them back and, use every inch of the pitch, use the width. Those two fit the bill as well. They play into that type of system as well. So I'm really curious how Pochettino sees that midfield at full strength, because what type of player would I think best suit playing with McKennie and Adams, in your opinion? If you're throwing in all those guys, Leonard Maloney and Malik Tillman, and I mean, obviously we haven't seen Gio Reyna healthy yet, but Johnny Cardoso, like which player profile you think best suits playing with McKennie and Adams in the midfield?
Well, let's just kind of break them down. Tyler's going to be doing all the work, right? All the thankless work. You try to, and he actually does a really good job of this, but I remember when I was playing with Michael Bradley in the national team, sometimes he would be defending sideline to sideline, right? And I remember having a talk with him during a World Cup qualifier, and I wasn't playing, but I watch and try to give notes to the guys because I'm a good teammate, Chuck. And so I said, hey, dude, you're getting out into the channels. Like, if you're our six, as much as I love that you want to do that work, you got to trust that the other guys can do their job. And because this is the national team, if they can't, that speaks to a bigger issue with our player pool. But you're going to be more effective if you stay within the width of the box, because if you get pulled out and then they can play into those spaces where you're now been vacated, that's going to be a problem. So Tyler's very good at staying and hopefully would remain, obviously, in that space. And if he does that, then I think you could have someone that's a little bit more of an 8, right? You might not need, I don't know if you need a double 6 when you have a Tyler Adams. I guess that was a really long way of saying that. And then we have Weston, who's kind of a hybrid 8-10, or can be at times, as we've seen most recently too with Juve, where he likes to float in, maybe be the second striker. He'll pop up out wide, maybe whip in across. He's very good at finding that space in between the lines. And so, all right, if you've got this guy who's a bit of a hybrid 8-10, then maybe you need a bit of a hybrid 6-8, right? Somebody that could, if we needed to, play off the shoulder of Tyler Adams and drop into a 2 6s if we need.
Not against Jamaica,
there.
though.
That's true. But just that you could, if you needed to, you could.
Yeah.
And then could be a hybrid 8 next off the shoulder. So now you have double 8s, or somebody that could push into maybe even a hybrid 8-10, like another Weston, and go from there. That's going to be the big choice, I think, is deciding
and that's not Johnny
what you
Cardoso.
want there. I don't. Well, Johnny actually did a really nice job this past weekend. Now, I don't know if we see that from him consistently, but he found himself in advanced positions, and he played an incredible through ball that should have been scored by Abdi in the first half against Atleti. And Atleti, arguably one of the best defensive teams in La Liga for so many years. So for him to be able to do that, he had another good through ball in the second half. It got called offside by inches. But so I like that he's looking to play forward, and that probably demonstrates something Pochettino would like to see. Does he have that in his bag? We've seen it from time to time, but it was nice to see it on display against a very good team this past weekend. I don't know. That's a really long way of me saying I don't know. Busio seems like he fits that Christian Eriksen role. Every time you've said that now, it's all I think about, that Pochettino loves the Christian Eriksen player. And Busio, I think, fits that profile the best.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Not always, but I'll give you that one, Chuck.
Man. I would love just to have a conversation with Pochettino in terms of how much creativity does he want within the team? Does he want that one player who is cerebral, or the conductor, someone who likes the ball at their feet? Or does he like to just play super aggressive and direct? It'd be good to know, because I think maybe he might say it depends on the opponent. And then in that case, you go, okay, so right. Maybe you have to change that one midfielder every game, or are you big on rotating in two matches within a window? If you have 2 fixtures within a window, do you like to play the same team? Well, if there's any indication, last window he played the exact same team when you could have rotated and got a look at different players. Although maybe he's thinking, I want to see their fitness and get a good baseline for them. So, these are all good questions, and it'd be worth a discussion to hear from Pochettino of what are his expectations out of midfield, and how can they support the striker more often than what we've seen.
Let's just say, and I know that I would probably agree with, I see Matt in the comments saying Adams shouldn't start in Kingston. We could argue that might be the smartest play. Get him integrated. You can understand it. Not that it'll take him long. Got a high IQ for the game. And then, but just for health purposes, and then roll him out for the second leg based on what we need. I do love Adams though, because he'll come out and set the tone, not only for himself, but for the whole team, right? He's got that type of gravitas. I think Tessman, there's a good shout from Ryan in the chat too, that Tessman could be a nice fit there. But again, to your point, Chuck, it's really a matter of what he's looking for from that particular role. I will say that one of my favorite moments so far, and I know it was very early on, but in the Panama game, and I'm going to reference it, something I've said a couple times, there was some passing patterns that were happening through the middle of midfield that I thought unlocked Panama, a very aggressive team. Now, Jamaica's not going to be as aggressive in that area of the field. They're going to pick their spots and try to trap us in certain areas, and then they'll be aggressive, but I think they're ultimately going to sit back. Even at home, I think they're going to do that a little bit and let us try to drive the game. Maybe we'll make our own mistakes and they can capitalize on punishing us for our mistakes. But I liked some of the passing patterns that I saw, which I thought involved and saw more than once. So it was clear that it was talked about, where Christian would pinch in from the outside and come in and almost act as a double 10 with Brendan Aronson. And there was a little bit of a box in midfield then at that point, where you had Christian as one of the 10s, Brendan as one of the 10s, and then you had Aiden Morris and Busio as like 2 6s. So there's a box there. If we're trying to establish that type of rhythm through the middle of midfield, then I think it does having someone who could help us in transition, help us in the build-out phase that's good at passing the ball. And not to say that all of our guys aren't capable of doing that, but we saw, let's say Cardoso for an example, he lost the ball in a bad spot against Canada, right? So if we can't trust him in high-pressure situations to play out of with his back to goal, facing our goal 25 yards out, we're trying to play out of it, then maybe you want to look at somebody else, right? So those are the the nuances, I think, that you'd have to take into consideration. But anyway, we could talk about this all day. We probably will in a future podcast as well. Let's talk about the goalkeepers, because we are in a big, giant crisis, Chuck. It's crisis time. It was crisis time before. Now I feel like it's hit another level. Let's talk about Gaga Slonina. Got dropped. He's given up 7 goals in his last 4 games. Got dropped. The fans were clamoring for it. They said it was time for him to move on or like get out of the starting 11. Barnsley win without him starting. They get a clean sheet 2-0. Not good for Gaga overall. Obviously, he's been on the show before, and he's talked about all the high hopes and dreams that he has. And finding that consistency as a young goalkeeper, probably the hardest thing, but something that definitely needs to happen if you're going to continue to grow and move forward. So that's disappointing. Then you have Matt Turner, 0 club minutes this season. 0 for Matt Turner. Ethan Horvath,
not a surprise.
360 minutes played. That's true. 360 minutes played for Ethan Horvath, but he's been benched since match day 4. Diego Cochin was on the bench for Barcelona's 4-0 win against Real Madrid in El Clasico in Madrid. That was an ass slapping, as we like to say, but very cool for him, even though they brought 3 goalkeepers. Very cool for him to have that experience. You know, Hansi Flick pushing all the right buttons right now for Barcelona. And then you got Patrick Schulte then. Is he the guy then that would be number 1 for you against Jamaica? The only one that's playing regularly?
Yeah.
Everybody else, like, what else do you do? Kind of like, well, I guess I have to go with the guy that's playing.
I guess, but I'm not convinced that Patrick Schulte's ready either. I don't think he's ready yet. He hasn't shown at the international level that he's ready yet. He's still mistake prone, just like Matt Turner is. So if Matt Turner was playing, that's a big if. Matt Turner is better than Patrick Schulte as a goalkeeper at this moment in time. I think Patrick Schulte still has a long way to go, and he has obviously a great potential, but
all right, so it looks like Chuck's Wi-Fi is doing Chuck on the road type Wi-Fi things. We're hopeful that he can join us again. Ultimately, though, I want to hear from everybody. Hit us up at Glosso America on all the social media handles, or hit us up in the chat right now. Who's your number 1 in Kingston? A tough game because Jamaica's going to put pressure on us. It's not like we're going to go down there and have 95% possession. You know, we might get a red card. Serginho Dest did the last time we were in Jamaica, and that wasn't a good night for us overall. So it's obviously very dangerous. I think that they've got good energy right now. Steve McLaren in in charge. And it would be funny if Steve McLaren was in goal. Andre Blake would probably be pretty pissed about that. But when you look at their team, player for player, Jamaica's good. And we can go back to the Nations League semifinal. We played them in Dallas. They took it to us. They scored, in the first 30 seconds? And we needed a deflected goal at the very end to get into extra time. This is a Jamaica team. And that was with a manager that I think a lot of the players didn't like. And now they've got somebody that they clearly like and giving them more defensive stability. They've only given up 1 goal in the 4 games that McLaren's been in charge. So this is going to be a tough one. And I'm still a little bummed that we drew them in the quarterfinals because it's not going to be that straightforward. But going down to Kingston, trying to get a result down there, you need somebody that's going to make the saves that you need them to make. There's going to have to be 1 or 2 timely saves where someone is going to have to step up and make that play. Matt Turner, I thought he was solid in the window against Panama and Mexico. Not much he could do on those goals from Mexico, and obviously got a clean sheet against Panama. I think you roll him out. And with regard to Schulte, as Charlie mentioned, 3 errors leading to goals in MLS this season, which is tied for the second most in the league. But there is something about playing or having a keeper that knows how to win. Schulte's won everywhere he's gone. We've talked about him before, winning MLS Next Pro with Columbus Crew 2, then winning MLS Cup, and then winning Leagues Cup. And just being around those types of vibes and understanding what that mentality takes to be a winner, I think is really important. So there's some value there, but I think when it comes down to it, you want to go with the guy that's been in a World Cup with you, that's played in the biggest moments. And not to take away anything from Schulte, who played in the Olympics for us, but I think Matt Turner has to be the guy. It'd be nice if he got some minutes. That would be helpful, but at this point, and I think what's interesting is you're going to have to go, or Pochettino's going to have to go against what he said about, hey, you got to be playing for your club if you're going to be playing for the national team. And he's going to have to make an exception right out of the gate for Matt Turner. He already did in the last window, and I think he's going to have to make that continue. So it's interesting when you set a precedent and you say something in a press conference, and then you can't match that right away. But yeah, in this situation, I don't care. We got to put the most trusted, experienced goalkeeper we can between the sticks. And right now, for me, that is Matt Turner. If you've got different thoughts, though, hit us up again at Golasso America or tag me and Charlie. We'll definitely jump into the conversation on social media as well. All right, we'll get into our last break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little MLS because the playoffs are upon us. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to JJ's.
I'll have a... Wait, there's no way I can get a burger?
No chance. But you can have the NFL on CBS streams live on Paramount+. Oh, hang on. There's a toy.
Welcome back into Call What You Want. I'm Jimmy Conrad, your favorite average to good host of your favorite average to good podcast. Charlie Davies, I don't know. Computer died, Wi-Fi got bad. He's going to jump in here in a little bit. Big Tones, something happened with his flight. He had to catch another one. So it's just me right now in the back half of this. I know that everybody's pretty happy about that. More me, less Chuck. And though Tones would be nice to have. He's always got a great perspective, as does Chuck. I'm just giving him a hard time. All right, let's talk a little MLS. And the big issue coming out, issue sounds dramatic, but the big topic, let's say, is the pros and cons of a fall-spring calendar. Apparently, there is, and this is a quote, the league is also weighing the possibility of organizing teams into divisions instead of conferences and playing part of the schedule as intra-conference and intra-divisional play only, with playoff spots on the line. The second half of the season would then help determine full season playoff seedings and spots. There's a lot going on, but MLS is reportedly considering a fall-spring season. And does everybody think this is a good idea? Now, this would fall in line with everybody else around the rest of the world. And let's start with the pros. The pros is, I think that it gives us more credibility as a league, perception-wise, from the rest of the world, if we're in line with the calendar that's happening around the world. We're part of the transfer windows in a more meaningful way. And I hope that there would be some evolving from some of the archaic rules that exist within MLS, some of the mechanisms like ham, tam, green eggs, and ham type stuff that's out there, that all that can be a little bit more straightforward so that our league can continue to be respected and taken more serious ultimately. So you align with the transfer windows. These are the pros, right? I think that's really important. And there's something about the fall calendar too, where does that also happen with the international dates? I always find it a little odd that sometimes MLS is playing games during FIFA windows. And I wish that they wouldn't, right? It's just another little thing. Sure, it's more perception than anything else. Does it really hamper the big scheme of things? Probably not. And then I would say that the summers would be a little bit different, right? You now have an open summer, and that could give. So instead of us playing during the Copa America, I say us as MLS, like playing during Copa America or these big international tournaments or Gold Cup or whatever. This is where, hey, Chuck, welcome back. But we're talking about the spring fall calendar
Thank
here.
you.
So we're talking about the pros of this, okay? And for me, there's a lot to like about it from a perception standpoint and how we would be more respected around the world for making that move. Obviously, there's a lot of logistical complications that we'll get into in the cons in a second. But the pros, another one I'd like to add is if you took that winter break, like let's say you take a Bundesliga 4 to 6 week break during the winter, the harshest months here, which other leagues do it, so it's not going to be outside the norm. You could potentially decide to do your Leagues Cup in the warmer cities. You could just hear me out. You could have like an MLS is back COVID-like tournament where you're in 1 or 2 or 3 different markets. I'd actually like to see Leagues Cup be in Mexico or Mexican cities, right? So it becomes a little bit more difficult for MLS teams. And so you could potentially have it in that 6 week break as you try to find a warmer climate to execute that. And that way you leave your summer open as the rest of the world does to play international games. But yeah, any thoughts on the pros of this? What do you like about it? Okay, Chuck doesn't like anything. He looks great. He's got a nice little smile on his face, a little smirk, but he is not around. So it's back to me. So I guess that's the big thought. What do you guys think in the chat? What do you guys think? Hit us up at Gloss of America once again. For me, the cons are the logistics. Now, one thing I didn't take into consideration as I've been reading about this and seeing people's thoughts and having conversations with people that I respect in the space. One of the things I never thought about was, you could just tilt the schedule during the harshest months because it's still cold in February and March. So even if you took the back half of December and all of January off, just as a starting point for this conversation, it's still cold in February and in March. And so for those winter climate, let's say Minnesota United, they still need to train somewhere. And if they don't have an indoor facility and they're going to be expected to train outside, it's just not that easy. And so that was a area or a layer of logistics that I wasn't prepared for with regard to this conversation. I was always kind of a little bit naive and pie in the sky about, why just play just tilt the schedule so that you're playing games in LA or in California and Texas and Florida, or even in the Pacific Northwest. Well, yeah, it'll be cold, but it won't be earth-shattering cold. So I don't know. I thought there was a way to do that, and maybe there is still some room. I know the season's starting because of so many teams now in the league. We'll have 30th next year with San Diego. You're going to have, us starting with MLS starts what? End of February these days. So you're already kind of there anyway. I think they should do it. Now, as it pertains to the league reorganizing the teams into divisions, I was part of the league when they had divisions, and there was like an East, West, and Central. So I'm kind of curious what that's all going to, or how it's all going to play out. And obviously that'll get sorted out here towards the end of the season. But let's talk about the season itself. Inter Miami getting the result recently, 3-1 over Atlanta. Leo Messi doing Leo Messi things. Jordi Alba scored a great goal. Luis Suarez looking like a spring chicken out there. They're going to be hard to beat, all things considered. Very curious to see how leg 2 goes in, I should say leg 2. There's 3 legs of this thing, but they could close it out with a win in Atlanta. Other news, we have Austin FC appointed Nico Estevez, Greg Berhalter, former assistant, who, from what I understand and what I remember, pretty bang average at FC Dallas, but he now takes over at Austin FC. I don't think anybody's really that happy about it. One, because hasn't really demonstrated that he's killing it at the MLS level, and 2, he coming from a rival. He's coming from FC Dallas to Austin. So that was interesting. Earthquakes. My former club, the San Jose Earthquakes, reportedly in advanced talks with Bruce Arena. Bruce Arena. Wow. I think that would be great for the Quakes. I just wonder, because he turned the Revs around, but he also was a sporting director as well. So I wonder what that looks like. Will he take on both roles? And it'd be great to see Bruce on the regular. I live in the Bay Area, so that would be very cool to be reunited with my old coach. And then Greg Berhalter, as we know, took over the Chicago Fire, sporting director and coach. They will be in charge of the two worst teams in MLS, the worst team in the East and the worst team in the West. And you wonder who's going to do better next year if they both take over. I put my money on Bruce. Just throwing it out there. Anything else that you guys want to discuss? Throw out some comments here before I let everybody go here on the show, because I'm bringing it home. Chuck, I think, is purposely has computer problems. I don't think it gets worse no way. Bruce Arena, I don't think it gets worse. That guy knows how to get the most out of his players. Outside of, I know the 2018 World Cup is going to be a big stain on his legacy, but and that's not qualifying for it. But I thought he was a tremendous coach and one of my favorite coaches I've ever played for. So I'm probably a little biased because I have some insights in high pressure situations of what it's like to play for Bruce. And I think he's got something to prove too with the New England Revolution situation, that he's still got he had the goods there. He clearly turned that program around. And listen, Bruce Arena, once he leaves, Caleb Porter comes in, and that program, the club's not great right now. That's a pretty quick decline when it's the same player pool ultimately, and when they had one of the top rated academies, right? And now they're that bad. They went from winning the Supporter Shield or competing for the Supporter Shield to being one of the worst teams in the league in 1 year. I don't know. You tell me. Bruce only coaches OG MLS teams. That would be amazing. So Tony asked me when I'm coaching in MLS. I'm currently applied for my UEFA A license, so I'm hoping that I can get accepted. And once I do, then I'm starting my slow march to hopefully coaching at the pro level one day. That's me being real talk with you. And I guess by me saying it out loud and publicly, I got to follow through at this point. But I'm excited about the possibility. Obviously, a lot of my former teammates are coaching. My former coaches are still out there doing it and making it a difference. So it'd be a lot of fun, I think, to jump in. And at some point, I'm going to set the mic down and get out there and try to make a difference. So I'm coaching my daughter's youth team right now, and I'm having a blast because I get to try all these methodologies and see if they work with kids. And it's funny how much of it does. And you wonder, okay, if I can make it work with younger kids and they can grasp certain concepts, then it should really work with the pros. But pros, a little bit different. You're managing ego in a different way and expectations and obviously the pressure to win, a little bit different than the youth level. However, youth sports in this country, as we know, a lot of pressure to win at all times. And yeah, so anyway, I'm excited about MLS, the playoffs. How do you guys feel about the playoff format? I don't know about the 3-game series and then the week in between games. I wish they didn't have that. It felt like that was baked in to make sure that Miami didn't lose in the first round. They could give Messi, Suarez, Busquets, and Jordi Alba enough time to recover between legs. But I understand that your golden goose needs to be healthy. And when he's on, he's unbelievable. So I got plenty of time for Leo Messi, but I just wish the playoffs. Whereas I mentioned before, I wish the MLS playoffs didn't exist. 10 months, Supporter Shield, you're the champ. That would give more emphasis on the Leagues Cup. You'd have more room for the Open Cup as well. And now you got 3 trophies. You want them to give Leagues Cup more emphasis, then lose these playoffs and make that a playoff in its own certain way. And if you haven't heard that before, that's what I'm standing on. That's the hill I'm going to die on for sure. I want to give a shout out to the Galaxy. I thought they were excellent in their 5-0 win over the Colorado Rapids. Orlando City looked really sharp against Charlotte as well. LAFC squeaking by Vancouver, who I thought Vancouver was very good against Portland, so an important win for LAFC. You got FC Cincinnati and NYCFC kicking off tonight. So, yeah, a lot to go off of, but I'm excited. I'm excited for how everything is playing out in MLS playoffs. So many big sporting events as well. I'm here in New York. I'm a Dodgers guy, so maybe I'll go to a World Series game. I don't know. Anyway, that's it. I'm calling it a show. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me as always, and with Chuck and Big Tones. We will be back with you guys on Thursday at our normal time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And as for my final thoughts, I want to speak for everybody here at Call It What You Want for the sad news and to say a collective rest in peace. And our thoughts and positive energy go out to Holden Trent, the goalkeeper for the Philadelphia Union, who sadly passed away this past week. We know no details other than this is incredibly sad news, and so the details are pretty much secondary at this point. But 25 years old, goalkeeper, playing behind Andre Blake at the Union, bright future, and incredibly tragic. And so yeah, it's a tough loss for the soccer community. And we wish the best for everybody that knew him and loved him, and yeah, I don't know where you go from there. It's I can't even imagine it being the parents of that, being a parent myself, and being around him as a teammate. It's really, really tragic. So just wanted to send our regards and our positive energy and thoughts to the Philadelphia Union and Holden Trent's family. And yeah, so we're going to end the show on that note, but we look forward to seeing you again in a couple days. Enjoy all the games that are coming your way midweek, a lot of good ones, and some Ballon d'Or action happening as well. Hopefully we'll have an American on the men's side be a part of the Ballon d'Or, but hopefully a U.S. women's national team player wins it on the female side. Thank you so much, though, for hanging out with us. We appreciate you and all of your supports, and we will see you on Thursday. Later.